Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Steph Kershaw. I am a postdoctoral research fellow at the National Drug and Alcohol Research Centre, located at the University of New South Wales. I'm also the project coordinator for the Cracks in the Ice online toolkit, and I will be chairing our webinar session today. I would like to start by thanking you all for joining us for this webinar. It's really wonderful that you could make it today. Today's presentation is one in a series of webinars which is focused on crystal methamphetamine for the Australian community. This is running as part of the Australian Government Department Health funded project called Cracks in the Ice. If you haven't already seen our website, I would encourage you to visit www.cracksintheice.org.au. And we welcome any comments or questions you may have, so please feel free to get in touch with us at any time. In a moment, I will introduce our speaker for today, but before I do, I would like to let you know that we will be recording this session today, and we will be making the recording and the slides available to you to download. Also, you will notice that you have a questions tab on your dashboard. This is where you can type in any questions that you have during the webinar and send them through to us. We will then have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our presenter for today, Mr. Jack Nagle. And he will be presenting Tackling Stigma in a 2018 Environment. So after playing basketball at a high level and becoming an incredibly fit and healthy young man, addiction took over Jack's life. This took his health, integrity and spirit out from underneath him, robbing his parents of a son and his brother of a role model. From these experiences, Jack is extremely passionate about using the destruction of his past as his greatest asset to give hope to people suffering with addiction and educating the community with the sometimes confronting but shattering reality of addiction. So thank you for joining us today, Jack. We are extremely lucky to have you, and I'm sure this is going to be an interesting session. So I will now hand over to you to begin the presentation.
Thanks. Okay, so I think I'm on. And thanks for having me on, everyone. I've lost my little box where I can see myself, but that's probably a good thing. I don't need to see myself anymore. But yeah, so thanks for having me on. Oh, there we go. I can see myself now. Yeah, I like doing these webinars a little bit better, actually, because I don't have to deal with looking everyone in the eyes and getting anxious and stuff like that. But yeah, I'd just like to start by, again, just thanking everyone for coming on and giving me the opportunity to share my story. I always like to mention, why I like to come on and share my stories, because, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a second, but when I got clean and, turned my life around, it was actually a major thing for me, was actually having someone else that had been through addiction talk to me about their story, and I could really relate. And it just really helped to shift my perspective and attitude. So, in some ways, I almost feel like it's my duty, to keep talking a little bit about my story and help as many people as I can along the way. So what I'm going to do today is I really am passionate at the moment about stigma around drug and alcohol use and drug and alcohol users, and how that impacts drug and alcohol users in getting some help, as well as how it impacts their families on, helping their loved ones and dealing with them, and just how it impacts the community as a whole. And I think it's really, really interesting how the mental health sector has been able to, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like they have made some really fantastic inroads in the last few years in turning, I guess, the perception of the public on how they view mental health. It's allowed a lot more people to, come forward with those issues, which is fantastic. So I think the same thing is more than achievable in the drug and alcohol space. And I just think people sharing their story, if they feel comfortable with it, is going to be such a huge part of that moving forward. So what I'm going to talk to you today is about that. And I'm going to cover off my story and tell you a little bit about myself and try and paint the picture a little bit. And then talk about how stigma impacted me when I was using, and also now, I guess, when I am not using drugs and just trying to, lead somewhat of a normal life, if you can call it anything like that. And I guess also, some tactics and some innovative ways of maybe combating a little bit more in the current world that we live in. And, me being a young person especially, I think there's a massive group of young people, that are suffering, that are very reachable through the avenues that we have these days. So, look, I'll start with a cute little photo of me. My mum definitely thinks it's a cute photo. I don't know about me. But yeah, I want to show you some photos and stuff like that of my childhood and really try and paint the picture of what it was like growing up for me, because something that I get a lot now when I go and share my story is people often say to me, that I don't look like I ever used drugs. And I guess if you looked at my life on paper as I was growing up, and even throughout my addiction, I wasn't, I guess, what you call your stereotypical drug user that you might see on the Hollywood movies or on the TV and things like that. So, this is me at a young age. So I grew up in a very middle-class family, I had everything I ever wanted, probably not, I had everything I ever needed, probably not everything I ever wanted. I had a really loving environment. And mainly in my life grew up with my mum. My parents split up when I was young, definitely had and do have a good relationship with my dad and spent a lot of time with my family and things like that. We did a lot of stuff, like went away on a lot of family holidays. This is my mum. I can always have fond memories of going away with family, spending a lot of time in, places in Victoria like Rosebud and going to the beach. My family is from, the country, so going up there and on the farm and stuff like that. So I really do have lots of fond memories when I was growing up, and definitely felt like I came from very lucky, and felt like I came from a nurturing and loving environment, which I think is really important to mention, when talking about people's story with drug addiction or drug use, is, it often comes up, I guess, that the stereotype is, that people come from a bad upbringing and come from really traumatic events, and that's why they're the way they are. And, that may be true in some cases, but definitely from myself and a lot of people that I know, it's not the case in a lot of people's histories as well. So, again, this is my family and some trips with my cousins and all that kind of stuff. So when I was growing up, I was very normal young boy, so loved sport. Went for the Richmond Football Club. Maybe that kind of explains a little bit why I kind of ended up the way that I did. But they finally had some success last year, which was good. I was just really passionate about sport. Loved football. Was always involved in sporting clubs and got a really good sense of community and stuff from that. When I was 12, I actually broke my jaw in a football game, and from there started to play basketball once my jaw had healed in the summer. So I'm 6'5", and I guess was always tall growing up as well. So basketball seemed like a good option and loved that as well. I'd probably say I liked football a little bit better than basketball, but I was definitely better at basketball. So through the years, I was just really lucky, again, with some good opportunities with my family and stuff. I was able to be put in a position to play in representative sides, and I guess, was lucky enough to have Andrew Gaze as my coach. And this is a photo of my team before we went and played over in America. So that was around age 17. We went to America and did a tour. And I guess if you looked at it, my life was kind of laid out to, have a potential sporting career. I think it's worth mentioning, sport was such a big thing in my life, and I often wonder whether it was almost too much for me, where when I was at this level playing basketball, I was literally getting up on a Monday, training twice a day, 5 times a week. playing on Saturday and playing on Sunday. So I was playing every day, most days twice a day. And I really had, in those early teenage years, not much of a normal social life in that aspect, in terms of going out to parties with my friends and all that kind of stuff. And I did definitely have a craving to go and do that kind of stuff, and go and hang out with my friends and, have a bit more fun, I guess. But in the same sense, I did love basketball as well. So the interesting thing about this time in my life, so this is me as I was like starting to get going with drug use. So despite all of this positive stuff, I guess you could call it, in my life, and great connection to community and my family and all that kind of jazz, it was something that was quite strange. My friendship group through primary school, and then obviously I went to high school with those guys as well, started to experiment with drugs around that similar age, 14, 15 through to 17, and I did as well. And basically at that time, any opportunity that I could, I would sort of be sneaking out to go and smoke marijuana and, drink alcohol and all that kind of stuff. And really, it wasn't too much of a problem, but when I look in terms of the effect that it had on my life, but when I look back on it, I definitely didn't, I've never really had a normal relationship with drugs and alcohol, whether that's because I felt like I didn't have that normal teenage years growing up because I was so engrossed in basketball, or for some other reason. But yeah, when I got near drugs, I definitely, overused them every time, and binged and stuff like that. And yeah, it was kind of, I always say that drugs were a little bit like the lady in the red dress for me. They were just something that caught my attention all the time, and just lured me in. And I was always very interested in that scene and that world, despite having a polar opposite world going on at the same time. So, around this time, 15 through to 16, I was just really experimenting with a bunch of different drugs. And I would say at that time was running a habit with marijuana and, smoking bongs, basically, any chance that I could get, and just was having a great time. So another thing that I always mention that, funnily enough, kind of shocks people is, the reason why I kept doing drugs was I actually was, I remember the first time I smoked marijuana, I was super scared. I was really, really nervous, just from all of the stuff that I'd seen on the TV, and, had been told through education and schooling by my family and all that stuff about drugs. So I was naturally quite nervous about what would happen. And yeah, the biggest reason why I started using and kept using drugs is because it felt amazing when I took drugs. And I think that's something really worth noting, is the reason why people do drugs and then do them again is because it feels really good and it's an amazing experience. And yeah, even though things went so horribly wrong for me, when I look back on it, I did have some of the best times of my life when I was using drugs. And yeah, I think it's something that's really underestimated by people when looking at the situation and the problem is, the kind of relief in some aspects, but just the euphoria and environment that happens around it can be really fun in those initial stages. And yeah, that was definitely the case for me, and why I definitely went back for more and kept pushing the limits. So what happened to me was, so around 16, I would say that I was pretty much smoking weed most days. And at 17, as I mentioned before, I actually, we went to America to do the tour and look at scholarships and all that kind of stuff. And I was quite a naive guy back then and didn't really know about drug withdrawal and all that kind of stuff, and didn't really realize that I was dependent on drugs. And that was the first time when we went away that I realized that I, was sort of in some ways addicted to it, because I had my first withdrawal on the plane over to LA, a 14-hour flight. didn't have anything to take or use, was 17, couldn't get alcohol. And I just remember that being a really bad experience, just, kind of the head racing and sweating and not being able to sleep and stuff like that. And then having to play basketball as soon as we got off the plane. I kind of realized, like, wow, I'm already hooked on this. And it was quite a surprise to me. And when I was over there, we drank and stuff like that, but didn't really use drugs. And I'm thankful because, we got caught, the penalties could have been bad and all that kind of stuff. But what actually happened was that even though I had all that great stuff going on with basketball in my life, when I got back from that trip, I just basically told everyone around me that I couldn't do it anymore, and that I was stopping basketball, and basically I just wanted to be a normal teenager, go to parties, chase girls, and have heaps of fun. And that came at a real shock to everyone. And really, what had happened through smoking marijuana is that I feel like my personality had definitely changed a lot from the use of that, and the kind of lens that I looked at the world through had definitely shifted. And what my goals and aspirations had definitely shifted as well. And it really swept me off my feet. And drugs.
Okay. Sorry, we just lost you for a minute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you've come back on. Do you mind just repeating that last bit that you said? Thank you.
No worries. So, I'll start from when I got back from America. The lens that I viewed the world in had really changed, and my goals and aspirations about life had really shifted, and it really swept me off my feet. And really, before I had went away to that trip overseas for basketball, I had experimented with other drugs and stuff like that, but never used them to too much of an extent. But that changed dramatically when I actually stopped playing basketball and I had all this free time. From there, I started experimenting more so with other drugs and just basically wanted to try all the drugs under the sun. And the same with marijuana. I felt very nervous every time I took a new drug, but always had the same experience, is that when I took it, I actually loved it because of the euphoria and the experiences that I had. All of them, except for psychedelics for me. I didn't really like them. I don't like the idea of just being completely on another planet and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, that's another story. I just really, I guess you could say, fell in love with the feelings that drugs gave me. So, and I didn't realize it at the time, and hindsight is, such a great thing. But again, my friendship group started to change. My relationships with drugs started to change. And I slowly started to fall more and more down the rabbit hole. So this picture is a little bit blurry, but I think it kind of paints the indication of, what was going on in my life. But this is me after I've just been in the fight, and I thought I was having a great time. But I was really disheveled throughout my using. So I guess, digression or the progression of my addiction really was quite fast for me. So I started using speed regularly, and then started smoking it. And at that time, it was probably one of the best things that happened to me, but also one of the worst things that happened to me. My mum was quite worried about me. She tells me now that she was in quite a bit of denial about my drug use and thought for a long time that I was just smoking marijuana and that I would kind of grow out of it, I guess. And didn't realize or didn't want to accept the full extent of what was going on. But I've never been much in good or into school and not very academic. So, I was kind of wagging all the time, not going and whatever. And she got me a job with one of her friends as a carpet layer. Pretty weird, I know, a carpet layer for someone that's 6'5". It's kind of an odd job, but that's what I did. yeah, the reason why I say it was the best thing that ever happened to me and the worst thing is that the best part about it is that I actually learned how to work and have some work ethic and stuff, which was really good. And also, I was very lucky. I was in a really good environment in terms of the males that were my bosses, and got shown a lot of stuff that's very important as a male in life, and some integrity and stuff like that. But the worst part about it for me at that stage with my addiction was that I was getting paid cash in hand, and just a touch under 18 years old, and because I was using heaps of speed, I was awake all the time. So I actually got 2 carpet laying jobs, and I used to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and go into the city, or start at 7 o'clock. So I'd be up at about 5 and catch a train into the city, and I would work an 8-hour day in the city. And then there was another job around the corner with these other guys with my mum, and we would work from, I think it was 6:30 through to 2 in the morning. And every week I was getting about, it was anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 cash in hand, and I'd never had that much money in my life. And in the days off on a Sunday that I wasn't working, I would go and buy all these drugs, and I was very much into uppers for a lot of my using, and that would kind of have me set for the week. And my habit to those drugs just started to increase and increase. And I was using more and more and building a tolerance, and different things kind of happened in my life. And then the worst part about it is that I was getting so much money that obviously my life started to deteriorate because I was, using so many drugs and not getting out of bed and all that kind of stuff. And I actually got fired in my underwear at my front door because I had the keys to a job and didn't get up. And all of a sudden I went from, getting 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 a week to no dollars, and a raging habit. And yeah, that was really bad for me because, it pushed my moral lines of desperation over the edge. And that was the fact. By that time, I didn't realize it, but I was really desperate to get and use more drugs at all times. And really, in hindsight, just be in a space where I was completely out of it all the time and not really dealing with anything in my life and processing anything. And yeah, it's kind of such a weird thing because, I guess in terms of when I look back on it now, my brother is actually 18 and, he's doing well and, living a normal teenage life. And I look at him sometimes and I think, some of the stuff that I was doing at his age in those early developmental years, it's just really impacted, the way I grew up in my life and the way I thought about the world in such a big way. So, and quite scary to think about that I was doing those kinds of things at that age. So, from there, I guess, because of the desperation and things like that, my using really took to another element, and I started hanging around different people, started basically doing petty crime to get the drugs that I needed. And that's really where ice came into my life. And the reasons why I started using it actually at first is I did have that speed habit, but obviously ice is a more pure version of amphetamine and a greater effect. And at first, a greater effect for a lesser spend because it was more potent. But obviously, that translates into some of the problems that people face with it moving forward. Is that you build the tolerance to it so quickly, and all of a sudden you're spending so much more to get the same high. And that's what happened to me. And really, when I started using ice, things changed for me again. And it also, I believe, really changed for me as well because of the environment that I put myself into. And I guess kind of the ideas that, those people had and the way that they looked at the world, I really started to take all that stuff on. and my addiction just started to progress on a whole another level. So I started using intravenously, tried all different kinds of drugs, and just had a really kind of horrific couple of years in my life. So I was using heroin at different times as well, and would overdose, and have became suicidal. So to kind of give you a bit of a snapshot at the end of my using, so I'm 6'5" now, and I'm about 100 kilos. And when I checked into rehab, I was so 6'5", and I weighed in at 62 kilos. And as a result of using ice, I experienced a lot of drug-induced psychosis and mental health issues. And would have true psychoses. So I guess what I mean by that is that I would completely black out and do all this kind of crazy stuff, and not realize where I was and who I was and all this kind of stuff. And then I'd just wake up kind of a day later or whatever, and everyone would just, I don't know, I'd be somewhere, I would have no idea what was going on. And everybody, was just kind of telling me stories of just how crazy I was and all this stuff that I did. And then, also I kind of started to believe that everything wasn't real, and that, people were out to get me, and was really paranoid and all that kind of stuff, and would talk to myself walking down the street. And as a result of, everything that was going on in my using, and the moral boundaries that I crossed, I really hated myself. I didn't know it at the time, but I really did hate myself. And I was suicidal, and had a couple of suicide attempts in my using. And there's heaps more stories to go along with that. And I'll tell you just a few to try and wrap them around some important points about, what happens in addiction, and, what people find interesting. And what I was completely confused about at the time as well is that when I got to that stage of my addiction, I actually didn't want to be doing what I was doing. And I knew that, some of the stuff that I was doing was wrong. And I knew that, I didn't want to be living like that anymore. But I really felt like I just couldn't stop. What would happen to me was that in the end, I was basically at different stages, kind of like crying when using, it's such a weird and hard thing to describe to people. Some of my friends call it like using against your will, or living to use, and that's kind of what it felt like, and such a strange thing. But within that, I felt I sort of in a way isolated myself so much, and felt so isolated. Hurt so many people through the process, and really felt like I couldn't reach out for help and express any of that stuff, and never really expressed any of it at all. And it just turns into this vicious cycle of all that stuff, and just perpetuates more and more. And that's what was happening to me. And it's interesting. I remember when I realized that I had a really, really bad problem was one night I was using, and by this stage I was hanging out with people that are all been to jail, and all that kind of stuff, and was with one lady, and her house was like a chemist, and that's kind of why we hang out with her. I used a lot of prescription pills as well, and I'd been using ice and was up for a couple of days, and then we'd taken a bunch of prescription pills and were drinking, and had gone back to hers, and basically that night I'd been suicidal and had attempts before, but just the mixture of the drugs and everything else that was going on, I decided that I was going to end it, and tried to commit suicide, and just took like a lot of pills in her house, and sculled like vodka, and they actually found me with pills like frothing out of my mouth, and picked me up and carried me to the back of their alley, and basically just left me there to die. And I was really lucky. A citizen was walking past and called the ambulance, and I got picked up by the ambulance, and they saved my life and stuff like that. But what happened is that a few days later when I actually woke up in the hospital and my chest was hurting and stuff like that, the first thought wasn't, oh my God, what have I done? The first thought was, I've got to get out of here and use. And I remember just ripping out all the cords, basically refusing to talk to the doctors and nurses. They just threw me a couple of hospital clothes and stuff like that. And I actually went right back to the people that had left me back in the alley to score off them again, because I knew they had drugs. And I was obviously feeling, resentful towards them as I was scoring off them, but didn't have the capacity to, not go there and not score. And I remember walking away from that house thinking, essentially, these people had just left me in the alley to die. And, I'd gone back to score off them and, almost pretended like everything was okay. There's something seriously wrong here. And yeah, that was kind of the story of my addiction in the end. I was just willing to compromise myself and everything that I'd grown up with and believed in just to get more drugs. And it was just a really sad existence. So how I actually got clean is there was a fair few attempts. By this stage, Mum knew that I had a bad drug problem and, was kind of seeking help herself, which I really believe helped to get me into, rehabilitation and get some recovery. But yeah, I basically just used a whole bunch of drugs and was up for, many days, and all this crazy stuff happened. And I came out of that after a week and just felt so low and depressed, and went to my mum's house, and I'd been kicked out of there at that stage. I had a younger brother, and Mum just didn't feel that it was safe for me to be in the house, and came back, and she hadn't been actually letting me in previously to that, but she did this day. She let me in, and I went in, and she has a big mirror on in her bathroom, and sounds really cliche, but it's honestly what happened. Really strange. I looked in the mirror, and my life kind of flashed before my eyes, and I sort of saw myself as this happy-go-lucky young guy that was playing basketball and had heaps of friends, and really had a good life in front of him. To what I was staring at myself, this stereotypical junkie that was 62 kilos and had psychosis and was suicidal and all that kind of stuff. And it was just enough in that moment to help me to reach out to my mum and actually ask for help. And I'm just so thankful that I have good, really, really good family support, which I think is such a help.
Hi. Sorry,
she had rehabs on speed dial, basically. Is it back?
Yes, you're back now. That's all right. It was only a second.
Am I back? I think. Sorry about that, everyone. She had rehabs already looked up and was getting professional help as well, which she always says to me was something that was so critical in helping her navigate my situation and how she could help me to the best of her ability. And so she had all the support already looked up, and we called the rehab that night, and I went there for an assessment the next day. And this is something else that's also really kind of pertinent to mention, is that I'd had these situations where I'd come home and ask for help before, and managed to kind of talk my way out of not asking or calling a professional right then and there and all that kind of stuff. And what always used to happen to me in my addiction and other people that I've spoken to as well is that you sort of get this window of opportunity when you're ready to get help, and it's not very long. And I was ready in that moment, and when I got up the next day and after we went for the assessment, I didn't want help anymore, and I really didn't want to go to rehab, and it was very, very stressful for my mum and everyone else involved to basically just support me until the point I think I had to wait a week or so to get in, and it was just very stressful. And they'd been, they were worried that it was going to end up like the other times that I'd asked for help, where I just kind of said one night that I was getting help and woken up in the morning and just said, no, I don't want any help and leave me alone, almost like I'd never said it before. And yeah, that's with my friends that are in, recovery as well. They all say the same things to me, is that, yeah, that there's just there seems to be this window where something just kind of interrupts your thinking or snaps your perception at the time, and you realize what's going on in your life and you have an opportunity to change it, but it doesn't hang around for long. And yeah, again, I was just really lucky. And as I mentioned at the start of my presentation, I had spoken to some professionals before, but I had this real attitude that, they didn't understand, or, they didn't know what I was going through and all this kind of stuff. And I was really fortunate that the rehab center that I went to, both of them actually, had people with what they call in the field a lived experience, or but basically had gone through addiction as well. And yeah, I sat down and sort of started with my attitude, and then they just kind of started to share some of their stories, and just the way that they were speaking. It wasn't so much the stories, actually, it was the way that they were kind of expressing how they felt and what happened to them at the stage that I was currently at, and all that kind of stuff that, was really intimate details that was enough to just kind of it was quite overwhelming, actually. I'd never heard anyone kind of talk like that before. And yeah, it was enough for me, I guess, just to trust that the center could help me. And I think that's such a big thing at that primary assessment, or that primary contact with a client or someone coming into treatment, or getting help in any capacity, is just before any of the special work happens to help them to get well and to help me get well, there had to be just this glimmer of trust and faith that maybe this could help me. And it's such a hard thing, and that's really initially what's at the core of many people that are going through addiction, is that they've just lost trust and kind of hope in turning things around. So I went through that rehab, and that was I guess they called it an intensive 28-day program. And then from there, I actually went to a youth supported accommodation program that had drug and alcohol programs wrapped around it, and got to stay in a house with other people in the program. And that was so important. That was the most important thing for me, actually. And yeah, there I got to learn how to kind of take responsibility for myself again, and live and independently, and learn how to interact with other people again in a healthy way. And also there, the workers were just really brilliant in encouraging me to find a bit of purpose and meaning in my life, and build my self-esteem by going back to school, and all this kind of stuff. And I just feel incredibly I wouldn't even say grateful. I just feel really lucky, actually, that I had that opportunity, because a lot of people that I speak to unfortunately don't get that. But I was lucky that I did get a spot in that place, and it really changed the course of my life forever. And so this is me a couple of years ago at a Richmond game. And things are quite a bit better now, I would say. And when I got clean or stopped using drugs, all I wanted to do was stop shooting up, and I wanted to put some weight on, and I wanted a girlfriend. All of those things happened pretty quickly. And now I kind of think, I want to stop putting weight on. I want to, be able to eat a cheeseburger and not feel like my thighs have gotten bigger or whatever, and I don't want as many responsibilities in my life. But no, I'm joking. It's just it's really fantastic. So yeah, this is me and my girlfriend, and things are really normal. And I don't kind of want to brush over it too much. I do want to talk a little bit about the other stuff, because I think it's really important. But the first couple of years, 18 months, were just so huge for me in terms of having the right people around me and the right support around me, just to kind of keep going when times got tough. Because when I got to that stage, and I was not using any drugs, it can be really challenging at times with different things that might happen in life, or the way that you're feeling, or, you know, mental health issues, or whatever that happens, just to kind of get through them and push on, till you can get to a space where you kind of, in a way, I guess you get some grace, or you get a little bit of time away from the drugs and alcohol, and your physical condition improves, and the chemicals in your brain just kind of settle down a little bit and rebalance, and you can just start like thinking clearly again. It was just so important to have the right people around me in those early stages. Another thing that was so huge for me as well, as I mentioned before, was not only doing all the therapeutical work, which I think is important, but, actually can, in a lot of cases, wait a few months or at least a year, even for some people, because I just kind of felt like I wasn't in the space to go and deal with, traumatic events and all that kind of stuff. Was to build my self-esteem up. And I think the audio's gone again. Yep, we're back. So the audio keeps dropping out, but something that was really important for me was to build my self-esteem and be encouraged, which was a massive step for me, to go back to school. And I just remember the feeling when I completed that. And before that, earlier than that, just like making my bed and cleaning the house and cooking for myself. It sounds really weird, but it was just such a massive thing for me. Just really making connections back with other people was so huge as well, and feeling like I wasn't misunderstood anymore and all that kind of stuff. So, and I really feel that things started to get easier for me after about 2 years in that process. And, I did a lot of stuff with my family to, repair some of the damage there and all that kind of stuff. So, my life has really, really changed. I'm completely happy at where I am. And I do feel grateful and incredibly lucky that my life is at where it is today, and that the Tigers are winning and are going to have another good year. So what's happened since then is that I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and got encouraged to go back to school. And, the obvious first step for me was to do a drug and alcohol kind of thing, and ended up working in the field as a result of that, and then ended up, kind of doing this kind of stuff that I'm doing now, and doing media and all that kind of, all those kinds of things, and telling my story on those platforms. And it's funny because it kind of segues nicely into what I'm going to talk about. But I actually carry some guilt, truth be told, from, those early days of doing media and stuff like that. Unintentional. But, I feel like in some ways, which I'll touch on through the next part of what I'm going to talk about. Do feel some guilt, like I may have perpetuated the problem a little bit just due to a lack of understanding when I went and, spoke on those media platforms and all that kind of stuff. But I do really like doing it, because you do reach an amazing amount of people. And I found that probably more than anything, a lot of it is just helping by telling my story has helped a lot of people just to kind of feel comfortable, come forward, tell me about it, or tell someone else about it, and then reach out and get some help. And I would do media segments and stuff like that, and then my Facebook inbox would just be loaded up with messages and all that kind of stuff. So it was really positive in that sense. But the media and other things, that impact people's perceptions in the public plays such an interesting role in how we move forward with this problem. And some of the areas that I actually carry guilt in is that, I really wanted to go on there and talk about my recovery story and try and, install some hope into others. But the thing that I didn't realize at that time is that really what the media wants to hear is the blood and guts of it. they just wanted to hear about when I tried to commit suicide and the drug use, and cut it out to make it sound like people are throwing chairs through windows when they use ice and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, it was really around that time when, and I still think it's there, definitely, but there was that massive panic through the media and through the public about ice in particular, and, how there was an epidemic and all that kind of stuff. And, since then it's been really interesting talking to the past presenter and, some other real professionals in the sector that have done research and stuff, like Nicole Lee, who presented last time, just about where we're actually at with the epidemic and, all that kind of stuff. So it's really interesting, and something that I think is really interesting for people to think about when they're watching the news, and when, they're thinking about their own situations or in a professional capacity, just how it's actually impacting at, the end of the line on the person using, that's trying to access services and, get some help. So, this is the kind of stuff that we saw at that period of time, and still goes on now. And yes, some of the stuff that, I started to feel like, oh, well, is this actually helping, or is this making the problem worse? And yeah, so as you can tell, all my slides are pictures, and I come at this from a very personalized perspective, and there is loads of stats out there on it. But I can definitely tell you just some quick myth breakers about, ice use and ice addiction is that, I would say that, yes, it's very a high likelihood that people, will experience kind of some mental health issues from using amphetamines due to the simple fact of not sleeping and all that kind of stuff. Not as much as, just the direct impacts of drugs, but a lot of the other stuff in terms of that we've seen in the media, so people throwing chairs at windows and being really violent, isn't actually the case from a lot of the people that I use drugs with, and a lot of the people that I talk to now that are trying to change their life from drugs or that are still using. It's not really a thing. Violence does happen, but it's not, I don't believe, not as a direct, not in my experience anyway, not as a direct use of using ice. And the other one that's really interesting is the scratching under the skin of bugs and picking and stuff like that, which can happen, but definitely not every person that uses ice is picking at their skin and scratching away underneath the surface and all that kind of stuff. It's so a lot of the things that are out there in the media and that are presented to us in the public forum are a bit skewed and really off. And I definitely found that with my story when I was sharing it in the media, that I often sit down with reporters and do a 40-minute interview, and there's probably 5% of it that is my actual personal story, and they just grab the snippets of me saying suicide and stuff like that, and focusing on that in their 30-second story. And yeah, it really does change the way people think about things. So I want to talk a little bit about how the impacts of stigma and I guess the perception of drug users and drug addicts impacted me personally when I was using drugs, and how it impacts me now, because I think it's really interesting to hear it from that perspective, and I don't actually hear that much. So I like this quote: addiction is not the entirety of me. I am me. I'm not just my addiction. I don't exactly know what that is, by the way, but I have found that through my time and think it's quite an interesting quote, because I definitely do feel that way, and I definitely feel that this is part of the problem moving forward, and breaking down some of the stigma is giving people the space to come out and talk about their addiction or their drug use to get some help, because a lot of the time, I didn't want to come out and talk to the people around me, because I felt like that's the only way that they would view me, and they would just see me as the addiction. And yeah, it's such a true thing. So when I was using, basically how it's really weird. You kind of fall into this subculture of people, and it's kind of an us against them mentality. And um, uh, yeah, once you fall into that culture, it's almost like you view the rest of the world as like the Muggles, out of Harry Potter. Like you're doing something different and special, and everyone else is just like weird. And yeah, it's not how I when I was using, I didn't see stigma on myself as an issue directly in that form, but I did just feel separated from the community, and I did definitely feel like no one understood me, and like I was going to be persecuted if I talked about any of the things that I was feeling or that were going on for me. Now, I must say, part of that was definitely from my own doing, and the reality and what makes breaking stigma around addiction hard is that, and around drug use hard is that, when people take drugs and, their behavior is bad, and the impacts of that behavior on the community, can be really detrimental. And I understand that that's probably the hardest issue to get through when breaking down stigma. But yeah, that's definitely so. So a lot of kind of the stigma was almost created to some of my own doing. But yeah, definitely it's added to by the perceptions of people and stuff like that. To the point, just down to really subtle things, like I remember when I first stopped taking drugs, and then obviously, physically I started to put some weight on, and look differently and look more healthy, really. And I really noticed it only when I got clean. But people would start holding doors open for me when I went into cafes, or they would say hello to me on the street. I felt like I was seen. It was really strange, and you definitely don't feel like that when you're in addiction, especially if you're showing the signs and symptoms of it physically. You really become isolated within the community, and it's hard to bridge that gap of getting connection back with people, because it feels like people don't really want to deal with you and things like that. So that's a lot of how users, I think, feel, and is why there's such a massive problem in trying to help people to come forward and feel comfortable in talking about their problems. But I definitely think that it is possible, and I definitely think that we have some amazing tools at our hands to be able to combat that. And it's been super inspiring, I think, to just see what the mental health industry has done, and how they've changed, some public perception around that, and allowed a lot of people to come forward and talk more about it. And I think that we can do it with addiction as well. So it's funny with that, though. This is kind of how far it goes and just the subtleties of it. And yeah, I feel like I'm actually in a good place with it, and I don't think that people do it intentionally, but I do a lot of this stuff now, and share my story in professional conferences, and do work in the field within a professional capacity and things like that. And I actually think that part of the problem that we have in the drug and alcohol sector and industry that we don't actually realize is that such a huge part of the stigma is actually within the workforce itself. And I don't think it's an intentional thing. It's just really like a subconscious thing that happens as a result of, what we hear in the public a lot. So examples of that, and it's just my experience, is that, I've been to many conferences and part of quite like official boards and stuff like that. But you go and then you're talking to people, you meet them, you're having a coffee before the event starts, and they'll be a professional psychologist or something like that, and they kind of ask you you know, how your day was, and, you know, you feel like you're a normal person, and you're being spoken to like a normal person. And then it's really funny, like they sort of ask you what you do, you know, and then I explain the story, and then it's really funny, like it's just subliminal things, but the tone changes. You know, often it can turn into sort of like a patronizing, you know, sort of thing, almost like when you're a child and, you know, an adult speaks to you in a certain way. It kind of feels like that. And it's really funny. And yeah, I think that's something that people would find really interesting, is just to, again, I don't take it personally, or I don't think it's a intentional thing. I think it's just so ingrained into the way that we think about drugs and alcohol that it impacts us at that level. You know, and I've done workshops with professionals that are working on the front line, you know, and just the kind of, they're suffering from stigma. You know, they think that people that are using ice in particular are going to come in and bash them up when they go and get treatment and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, a lot of the time it's just not the case. So, and just having those ideas and thinking that way about it initially just changes the first initial contact and interaction that you have with someone, and yeah, it can break down that trust and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just a really interesting point to kind of see how, you know, stigma just from my personal experience just carries over, and what makes it hard, or what some of the barriers are for people in, you know, trying to turn their life around and trying to change things up, is that, you know, it's definitely hard to take that past out of it and, you know, feel like you're on a level playing field with everyone else, even after you've turned your life around, and feel like, you know, you're considered just as an equal human being, and that you're not different, or you don't need to be babied because you're a drug addict, you know, and or you had a past with drugs. So yeah, I think there's some of the challenges and barriers that we have, like with stigma, and moving forward with it just within the sector itself, and could be some really interesting things for people to think about.
That's definitely a good point, Jack. I just wanted to let you know that it is 1 o'clock. So if you could wrap up in the next couple of minutes, and then we'd love for people to stay on, and we will have our question time. Thank you.
No worries. Sorry, I can talk underwater. So what I quickly like just wanted to talk about, which is something that I've found incredibly interesting just through the work that I'm doing now, which I'm pretty passionate about, is like breaking through stigma and trying to change some of the perceptions out in the community, so that people, you know, do feel a little bit more comfortable, you know, getting treatment and stuff like that. But there's such an interesting conversation around social media at the moment. And, you know, I see the way that people in all age demographics interact with it now, and really the shift that's happening from traditional media to these social media platforms. And, you know, we've seen so many interesting events that have happened really in the history of the world, you know, like things like the Arab Springs, you know, the uprisings of throwing over governments and stuff in the Middle East, through the use of like Facebook, you know, the potential interference from Russia in the American elections, you know, lots of different things like this. And I just find it really interesting that, you know, these social media avenues could be used in such a form to impact things in such a way to change the history of the world. And I think that we're really, really underutilizing them in our efforts to, you know, combat stigma and change people's perceptions. Because the reality is now, I know for me, when I sit down on the couch with my family, that even if you're watching TV, when the ads come on, most people are looking at their phone, scrolling through Facebook and all this kind of stuff. So it's really where people's attention is. And, you know, I think sometimes with social media, just with all the other discussions around it, you know, we forget about how powerful it is. and the way it could be used to change people's lives and change people's perceptions. But I think some more efforts into thinking about using that on a greater level and being a lot more creative with it in the way that will impact people on the front line, and people using drugs and all that kind of stuff is amazing. So you can see some of the user groups and stuff like that of these channels, and how much people are actually on it. And I won't go right through them all, but there's just some amazing ways in which you can actually use social media to reach people. I just think like some key points to finish off what I've been talking about, and I hope it's provided some interesting information for you, is that, just remember the keys of using the power of social media, and remember, the kinds of things that it has been able to change in the world, and, some greater thinking goes into it. It could be used in the same way in the area of breaking down stigma and addiction, using smarter targeting campaigns with it, and, using it in a way to storytell. And also I think we need to start thinking about it more as like a marketing campaign, rather than just information, because really what we're trying to do is, I think most people that are involved in this, want people to start thinking about drugs and alcohol in a different way. And there really has to be a strong marketing message behind that, to really engage people in a emotional way and help them to maybe realize a different way of thinking. So, this is me on social media, and thanks for taking the time to sit down and letting me tell my story, and talking a little bit about some other stuff. And happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Jack. So if Jack's story has raised any concerns for you, we do have a number of support services listed on Cracks in the Ice, or you can call Lifeline on 13 11 14. So now we have a few minutes for questions. Some questions have come through, but if you do have a question you would like to ask, please submit it through the questions box. So we'll do questions for about 10 minutes or so. The first question is, thank you for your talk, Jack. He's interested in finding out about what sort of challenges are different for people in rural or remote communities.
That's interesting. So I've actually had, I've got family members in rural Victoria, that are having problems with drug and alcohol issues. One of them, which has managed to turn it around. So I think the massive challenges out there is that, the lack of services available, and also often what people communicate to me is that, in those smaller country towns, everybody knows each other, and in terms of a stigma point of view, everybody knows each other's business, and it makes it even that much more harder to overcome the fear of being persecuted and stuff like that. So I definitely just think the lack of services, and the small town aspect makes it really hard.
Definitely. So I've got another one. Do you think that myth busting, things about the perceptions of ice, how much ice is used, helps to combat and destigmatize ice use?
I do, but I do think it has to be done in a more interesting way. So one of my bugbears with this kind of stuff is, like you'll watch a myth-busting video or something, and it's got like elevator music behind it, and it's just kind of pretty monotone and maybe a little bit boring. I think, we underestimate the ability to kind of storytell and target people in the little subcultures that they're interested in, and relate it back to other things that humans are interested in, a bit like they do when they're trying to sell you Doritos or whatever. They use different social trends and stuff like that to make it cool and all that kind of jazz. So I do think it's really important, but I think it needs to be done in a more innovative way that's more interesting to the consumer.
And this leads on to my next question that I've had about what are some of the terms that are used that you find quite stigmatizing? So, for example, clean versus dirty. Are there any sort of other terms that are used a lot in the media that you find quite stigmatizing?
I think they all are stigmatizing. I think one of the biggest problems that we have, and even I find it hard to phrase it in a way that doesn't exclude people, is just when we're talking about like recovery and stuff like that. There tends to be the perception that you have to be completely.
Sorry, Jack, you just dropped out for a second.
The audio gone there?
Oh, only for about a second or so.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So I think one of the things that's a real problem, and even I find challenging, is that, when we talk about people being clean or in recovery, it tends to be the perception that people have to be, completely abstinent, which is a great thing. But I think that limits a lot of people feeling like, they're in recovery too, and like they're moving forward and progressing in their life, that they have to be completely clean. I actually think talking like that is, really limiting and stigmatizes a lot of people as well, if that makes sense.
Yes. So how is your relationship with your family now? And did it take a long time to repair that relationship?
Yeah, so it's really good now. And it did take a long time, and I've found for myself and other people, that I work with as well, it's not so much about the talking aspect of it. It's been a lot about the actions and, the different things that I do in my life, which has helped to, bridge the gap and repair my family's relationships with me and others as well. Yeah. So it's really good.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So I've got another question about emergency departments, and what do you think about having clinicians in the emergency department to discuss the addiction issue with people at risk of getting addiction? So, for example, those who have come in after initial use of drugs at a party. Do you think it would be helpful for a clinician to sit down and talk to them about the risk of addiction?
It really depends. Like, yes, it just depends. If someone's like intoxicated, obviously they're not gonna listen. I remember going to hospital and speaking to social workers and stuff like that, and I didn't want to talk to them. I actually think that the magic really happens when people are more in their own environment, and so people are going out to them and talking to them on the street and engaging them in that way, not so much when they're at the end of crisis, or they've been admitted to the emergency department, just because it is a good idea. But for me, I think it would have just fallen on deaf ears, really.
Yeah, no, that's true. You have to be ready to listen sometimes.
That's right. Yeah.
So just one last question. Do you have any advice for people who may be on their recovery journey, who wish to share their story but may still be quite vulnerable, and to consider how they protect themselves around the stigmatizing issue of drug use, and in consideration of how their story can be used inappropriately?
It's a great question. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
Oh, no, it's fine.
It's a great question, and I usually try and mention it. I don't think I did this time. I definitely don't think everyone should come out and tell their story. I definitely struggled with it at first, and you do really have to think about where you're at within yourself, and whether you feel like you can deal with it and stuff, because at the moment, the reality is you will suffer stigma, and it will be quite a hard thing to do. So I think that really has to be taken into consideration, and only really you will know. I actually think now a lot of the benefits lie in talking about addiction on these kind of platforms or through, social media avenues like YouTube, where there's not a company basically trying to attract people's eyeballs through ratings and stuff like that. So they're not just cutting out things and putting them on the media to get ratings and, scaring everyone basically. So, I think that's a really interesting way to kind of think about it, is how you can do it through avenues that you can control more, and where you'll get the whole context of the story. And also just having really good people around you and getting support through it all as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. So it's time to close today's session. Thank you so much for joining us, Jack. We really enjoyed your presentation and your hearing about your life story and the personal view of addiction. I'd also like to thank everyone who joined in the webinar today. I apologise to anyone who didn't get their questions answered. You are more than welcome to get in touch with us via email, and we will respond to any questions or inquiries as soon as possible. We will be holding more webinars and putting more new resources on the Cracks in the Ice website throughout the year. So I would encourage you to subscribe to our mailing list at www.cracksintheice.org.au to receive future updates. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope you will have a lovely day. And thanks again, Jack.
No worries. Thank you.